Hello, and welcome to History for Sleep. Tonight, we are going to travel back to the Golden Age of Piracy, to a time when wooden sailing ships crossed enormous stretches of ocean, merchants carried valuable cargo between distant ports, and men could disappear beyond the horizon in search of fortune, freedom, or simply a better life. But tonight, you are not a famous pirate captain. You are not standing proudly at the wheel with a black flag above you. You are simply another sailor aboard a pirate ship. You wake before sunrise. For a moment, you lie completely still. The first thing you notice is the movement beneath you. The wooden surface rises gently, then falls again as the ship moves through the dark Atlantic water. Somewhere below, the hull creaks softly. Above you, ropes shift against the mast, and the faint sound of the sea passes along the sides of the ship. You open your eyes. It is still dark. The air is cold and damp, and the blanket covering you is rough against your skin. Around you, other members of the crew are still sleeping wherever they manage to find a place. There is no comfortable bedroom here. There is no quiet house waiting nearby. There is only the wooden ship, the sleeping crew, and the endless ocean surrounding you. You pull the blanket closer and listen. The ship creaks again. A sailor coughs somewhere in the darkness. Someone shifts beneath a blanket. Then everything becomes quiet once more. This is the part of pirate life that stories rarely show. There is no treasure chest beside you. There is no enemy ship on the horizon. There is no dramatic battle taking place. There is simply another morning at sea, and soon the crew will have to wake. The Golden Age of Piracy is often remembered through legends. We think of buried treasure, black flags, famous captains, daring raids, and dramatic battles between wooden ships. But the real life of a pirate was usually much less glamorous. A pirate still had to work. Sails needed repairing, ropes needed checking, the deck needed cleaning, fresh water had to be protected, food had to be prepared and rationed, weapons needed to be maintained, and the wooden ship itself needed constant attention. Because this ship was not simply a way to travel. It was your home. It was your workplace. And in the middle of the ocean, it was the only thing standing between you and the sea. You slowly look around at the men sleeping nearby. Some may have been sailors on merchant vessels before joining a pirate crew. Some may have experience in naval service. Others may have come from difficult lives ashore, where opportunities were limited and the promise of a share of captured goods was difficult to ignore. Whatever brought them here, they now share the same cramped world, and they will share its dangers as well. Storms, disease, injury, hunger, thirst, and the possibility of being captured. The sea can be beautiful from a distance, but living on it is another matter. A calm ocean can suddenly become dangerous. Food can spoil, fresh water can become precious, and a ship that looks strong from the shore can feel surprisingly fragile when surrounded by hundreds of miles of open water. You slowly sit up. Your body is stiff from sleeping on the hard wooden surface. Your mouth is dry. Your stomach reminds you that you have not eaten for many hours. The first gray light of dawn is appearing beyond the horizon. Someone nearby begins to move. Then another sailor sits up. The crew is waking. There is no grand announcement. The day simply begins because the ship requires everyone to work. Before we continue, if you enjoy these slow journeys through the past, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to History for Sleep. Your support helps the channel grow and allows us to keep creating long, relaxing historical journeys that you can listen to while resting or falling asleep. And now, make yourself comfortable. Let the modern world become quieter for a while. Imagine the gentle movement of the ship beneath you. Listen to the wooden hull creaking with every wave. Feel the cool morning air moving across the deck. You do not need to remember everything you hear tonight. Simply allow the story to unfold. The sky is becoming lighter now. You can see the rough wooden boards beneath your feet. Barrels are secured along the deck. Coils of rope lie beside the mast. The sails are beginning to catch the morning breeze. The men around you are preparing for another day. You stand carefully as the ship rolls beneath your feet. For a moment, you look toward the horizon. The sun slowly rises over the sea. The crew begins its routine, and your first morning as a pirate has begun. The first thing you learn about life aboard a pirate ship is that there is very little space. You might have imagined a pirate ship as a place of freedom, with wide wooden decks, tall sails, and plenty of room to move beneath the open sky. But you do not begin your morning on the deck. You begin it below. The darkness around you is slowly fading, although the difference between night and morning is difficult to notice at first. There are no windows here, no curtains to pull aside, no morning sunlight falling across a comfortable bed. Instead, you know that dawn has arrived because the sounds of the ship are changing. The crew is waking. You hear someone moving nearby. A blanket is dragged across the wooden floor. A tired voice mutters something you cannot quite understand. Then comes the sound of footsteps climbing toward the deck. You remain where you are for another moment. The wooden boards beneath you are hard. Your shoulder aches from sleeping in the same position for too long, and your legs feel stiff. You shift carefully. Someone beside you complains quietly as you move. There is simply not enough room for everyone to sleep comfortably. This is one of the realities of life at sea that is easy to forget when looking at pictures of beautiful sailing ships. A ship may look enormous from the outside, especially with its tall masts and wide sails rising above the water. But inside, every part of the vessel has a purpose. Cargo needs space. Barrels need space. Ropes, sails, tools, weapons, food, and water all need to be stored somewhere. The crew has to fit around all of it. You are part of that crowded world. You slowly sit up. The smell is stronger down here than it was on deck. There is damp wood, salt, sweat, old clothing, smoke, and the unmistakable smell of men who have been living together in a confined space for far too long. The air is not fresh. It is heavy and stale. You pull your clothing into place and prepare to climb upward. Before you reach the ladder, you hear the sea more clearly. The ship rises, then falls. The movement is gentle this morning. For that, you are grateful. A rough sea would make even the simplest task difficult. You place one hand against the wooden wall and begin climbing. The ladder is narrow. You reach the deck, and suddenly the world opens around you. The morning air feels cold against your face. You breathe deeply. Salt fills your lungs. Above you, the sky is beginning to brighten. The first light of dawn stretches across the horizon, turning the dark sea into a faint silver gray. For a moment, you simply stand there. There is no land, no city, no familiar coastline. Only water. Endless water. The ship moves steadily forward beneath you. The sails are catching the morning breeze. The ropes creak. The mast sways slightly. And around you, the crew has already begun its work. Nobody is standing around waiting for instructions. Everyone knows that there is something to do. A sailor is checking the ropes. Another is examining part of the rigging. Someone is preparing food. Another crewman is clearing away the remains of the previous night's meal. This is your first lesson. Piracy is not simply about taking ships. It is about maintaining one. A pirate ship cannot survive if its crew ignores the small things. A loose rope can become a serious problem. A damaged sail can slow the ship. A leak can become dangerous. A broken piece of equipment can leave the crew struggling far from land. Everything matters. You walk toward the center of the deck. The wooden boards are worn smooth by years of feet passing over them. You notice stains in the timber, marks from tools, scratches, small repairs. Nothing about the ship is new, and yet it continues to carry you forward. You look toward the men around you. Some are already working silently. Others speak quietly among themselves. There is no sense of excitement. The morning is ordinary, and that is exactly what makes it important. Because most days aboard a pirate ship are ordinary. The legends remember the dramatic moments. They remember the attack, the chase, the cannon fire, the treasure. But those moments are surrounded by hundreds of quieter hours. Hours spent sailing, waiting, repairing, eating, sleeping, watching the horizon, waiting again. You begin to understand that the ocean itself is part of the punishment. There is nowhere to walk, nowhere to escape. If you become angry with someone, you cannot simply leave. If you become sick, there may be nowhere to take you. If the food runs low, There is no market around the corner. And if the weather turns against you, the entire crew must face it together. You glance back toward the horizon. The sun is beginning to rise. Its light touches the tops of the waves. For a brief moment, the sea looks almost peaceful, beautiful even. But you know better now. The ocean can change quickly. A calm morning can become a dangerous afternoon, and somewhere ahead, beyond what you can see, another ship may already be moving through the same waters. Perhaps it carries valuable cargo. Perhaps it carries armed sailors. Perhaps you will never see it at all. For now, you do not know. You only know that the ship is moving, and that your day has begun. Someone calls your name from across the deck. There is work waiting. You turn toward the crew. The morning wind moves through the rigging overhead. The ship rises gently on another wave, and you begin to understand what it truly means to live as a pirate. Not to live like a legend, but to live like a sailor. One day at a time, one wave at a time, one uncertain horizon after another. Breakfast aboard a pirate ship is not the sort of meal you would remember for its comfort. By the time you reach the deck, the crew is already beginning to gather around the morning food. There is no large table waiting for you. There are no fresh pastries, warm coffee, or bowls filled with fruit. Instead, you see barrels, wooden containers, and simple provisions that have been chosen because they can survive a long journey at sea. Bread is one of the most important foods aboard the ship. But even bread is not always fresh. After spending weeks at sea, it can become hard and dry. Sometimes it may become infested with insects. You learn quickly that hunger changes the way you think about food. A piece of bread that you might have ignored at home becomes valuable when you know there may not be another meal for many hours. You are handed something to eat. You take your portion and find a place near the side of the deck. The ship continues moving beneath you. Around you, men eat quickly. Nobody wants to waste time. There is work waiting. Water is even more important. Fresh drinking water is difficult to carry in large quantities, and a ship can only store so much. Every barrel takes up valuable space. Every barrel also becomes heavier as it is filled. That means the crew must think carefully about how much water they carry and how long it needs to last. When you are far from land, there is no easy way to replace it. You take a drink and look out across the sea. The water surrounding the ship appears endless. It is strange to think that you can be surrounded by millions of gallons of water and still have to worry about thirst. But seawater cannot satisfy you. So the fresh water stored aboard the ship is precious. The same is true of food. The crew cannot simply decide to stop at a market whenever supplies become low. Everything must be planned around the journey. Salted meat can last longer than fresh meat. Hard biscuits can survive for months. Dried peas and other preserved foods can be stored aboard ship. But none of these foods are particularly exciting. They are practical. They are chosen because they can survive, and survival is more important than comfort. You look around at the crew as they eat. Some men speak quietly. Others are already finishing their meal. A few are staring toward the horizon. Everyone knows that the day ahead could be completely ordinary, or it could change in an instant. For now, the sea remains calm. The wind is steady. The ship is making good progress. That is enough. When breakfast is finished, there is no time to sit and relax. The deck needs attention. The ropes must be checked. The sails must be watched. The ship must remain in good condition. You begin to understand how much work is hidden inside the simple act of keeping a wooden vessel moving. The sails depend on the rigging. The rigging depends on ropes. The ropes depend on careful maintenance. The hull depends on constant inspection. And the crew depends on all of it. A pirate ship may be used to attack another vessel, but before it can do that, it has to survive the ordinary journey across the ocean. You are given a task. It is not heroic. It is not something that will ever appear in a story about famous pirates. But it needs to be done. You take hold of the rope and begin working. The fibers are rough against your hands. The morning wind pulls at the sail above you. The ship rolls gently beneath your feet. You pull again. Someone nearby gives you instructions. You follow them. This is how the day really begins. Not with treasure, not with battle, with work. And as the hours pass, you begin to notice something else. There is no true separation between work and life aboard the ship. The same place where you eat is the place where you work. The same wooden deck where you sleep may become the place where the crew prepares for a fight. The same ship that carries your food and water is also the thing that keeps you alive. You are never completely away from the sea. Even when you sleep, you can feel it moving beneath you. Even when you eat, you can hear it outside. Even when you work, the wind is always present. The ocean is part of everything. You pause for a moment and look toward the horizon. The morning has become brighter. The sun is now higher above the water. The cold has begun to fade. For a short while, the ship seems almost peaceful. You might understand why some sailors were drawn to this life. There is something powerful about being surrounded by nothing but open water. There are no crowded streets, no walls, no ordinary routines from the world ashore. Only the wind, the sails, and the movement of the ship. But the freedom comes with a price. You cannot simply leave. You cannot walk home. You cannot decide that you have had enough and step onto solid ground. Until the ship reaches port, this is your entire world. And if the crew stays at sea for weeks, you remain here for weeks. That is the reality beginning to settle in. The pirate life may offer freedom from certain laws and restrictions on land, but it creates an entirely different kind of dependence. You depend on the ship, you depend on the crew, you depend on the weather, and above all, you depend on the sea. The work continues. Another rope is pulled tight, a sail is adjusted, a barrel is secured, someone calls from the mast. You look upward. The ship is moving smoothly through the morning water. Nothing dramatic has happened, and yet you are beginning to understand the rhythm of this life. Eat, work, watch, wait, and sail, again and again. For now there is no enemy in sight, no cannon fire, no chase, only the long journey ahead, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the next part of your pirate life is waiting. The morning has settled into a steady rhythm now. The first hunger has passed, the deck has been cleared, and the crew has returned to the work that keeps the ship moving. You are beginning to understand that a sailing ship is never truly still. Even when the wind is gentle and the sea is calm, there is always something moving. The sails breathe with the wind. The ropes tighten and loosen. The mast shifts slightly. The hull rises and falls beneath your feet. And somewhere below, the wooden structure of the ship continues to creak. You are told to help with the rigging. At first, the task seems simple. A rope needs to be pulled. Another needs to be secured. A knot needs to be checked. But the farther you work, the more you realize how much skill is required. The ropes are not random. Each one has a purpose. Some control the sails. Some hold equipment in place. Others help the crew climb, move, or adjust parts of the rigging. A mistake can have consequences. A loose line can whip across the deck. A poorly secured rope can allow part of the sail to move unexpectedly. And high above you, the sails are heavy. When the wind catches them, they can pull with surprising force. You watch one of the more experienced sailors working nearby. He moves quickly, but never seems rushed. His hands know what to do. He checks the rope, adjusts it, and moves on. He has probably performed the same task hundreds of times. You begin to copy him. The work is tiring. Your hands become sore. The rough fibers scrape against your skin. But nobody complains. This is simply part of the day. You look upward. The mast seems much taller from the deck than it did when you first saw the ship from a distance. A sailor is working higher above you, moving carefully through the rigging. From that height, the deck must look very small. Beyond him, the sail stretches against the sky. It catches the wind and pulls the ship forward. For a moment, you understand how dependent everyone aboard this vessel is on something as simple as wind. There is no engine, no button to press, no mechanical power waiting below deck. If the wind changes, the ship changes. If the wind disappears, the ship slows. If the wind becomes too strong, the crew may have to reduce the sails to protect the vessel. The sea decides much of what happens. You return to your work. As the morning continues, the sun rises higher. The cold air becomes softer. The deck begins to warm beneath your feet. But the work does not become easier. You are asked to help inspect part of the ship. This means looking for signs of damage. Wooden ships require constant care. Water is always trying to enter. Salt slowly damages materials. Ropes wear out. Sails tear. Wood can split. Metal fittings can corrode. A ship that is ignored for too long can become dangerous. So the crew watches for small problems before they become large ones. You crouch beside a section of the deck. There are marks where repairs have already been made. Some boards are newer than others. You can see where nails have been replaced. You run your hand across the rough wood. This ship has already survived storms, long voyages, hard weather, and countless days beneath the sun. It is not beautiful in the way a new ship might be. It is useful. And usefulness is what matters. The pirate crew does not need a perfect ship. They need one that can keep sailing. That distinction is important, because every mile from land increases the importance of the vessel beneath you. If something breaks near a harbor, help may be possible. If something breaks in the middle of the Atlantic, there may be no one coming. You continue working. Around midday, the crew begins preparing another meal. The smell of food reaches you before you see it. It is simple again, nothing luxurious. But after several hours of work, even ordinary food becomes something to look forward to. You sit with the others. The conversation is quiet at first. Then, someone begins telling a story. Another sailor laughs. For a few minutes, the tension of the work disappears. This is another part of life aboard a pirate ship that the legends often overlook. The crew has to live together. They eat together, they work together, they sleep within the same confined space. And when the journey becomes long, these small moments of conversation become important. Friendships can form. Arguments can form too. A ship leaves very little room for either to disappear. You listen while the sailors talk about places they have visited. One speaks of a Caribbean port. Another remembers a merchant ship he once served aboard. Someone else talks about a storm that nearly destroyed his previous vessel. You realize that many of these men have spent years moving between ships and ports. The ocean is not unfamiliar to them. It is their world. For you, everything still feels new. The horizon seems impossibly large. The ship seems small. And yet, there is comfort in watching experienced sailors move around you. They know how to read the wind. They know how to recognize changes in the sea. They know how to work the ship when darkness arrives. They know what to do when a storm approaches. You are slowly learning. After the meal, the crew returns to work. The afternoon stretches ahead. There is no clock hanging above the deck to tell you when the day will end. Instead, time is measured by the sun, by the watches, by meals, by the changing light. Eventually, another sailor will take your place. Then someone else will take his. The ship continues. Always forward. You look over the side. The sea passes beneath you in long, dark blue lines. Every wave seems to carry the ship farther from the life you once knew. And for the first time, you begin to understand something about piracy. The adventure is not found in every moment. Most of it is routine. The adventure, when it comes, grows out of that routine. It interrupts the ordinary. It changes the rhythm. But until then, you work, you eat, you watch the horizon, and you wait. The afternoon wind strengthens slightly. The sail fills. The ship leans gently. Someone calls for a rope to be adjusted. You stand and move toward it. There's still work to do. And somewhere ahead, beyond the horizon, the world of the Golden Age of Piracy is waiting. By the time the afternoon watch begins, you have started to recognize the rhythm of the ship. The morning work is behind you now. Your hands are tired, your clothes carry the smell of salt and wood, and the movement of the vessel no longer feels quite as strange as it did when you first stepped onto the deck. But there is still something you have not yet experienced. The ship is approaching another vessel. At first, it is little more than a shape on the horizon. One of the sailors notices it before you do. He stops what he is doing and looks toward the distant water. Then he calls out. The crew becomes quieter. You follow his gaze. There, a dark shape, small at first, almost impossible to distinguish from the horizon. But it is moving. The ship around you changes immediately. Men who had been working casually begin to pay closer attention. Someone climbs higher for a better view. Another sailor moves toward the captain. You can feel the atmosphere becoming different. Nothing has happened yet. There has been no cannon fire, no shouting, no chase. But everyone understands what another ship could mean. It could be a merchant vessel. It could be another pirate ship. It could even be a naval vessel. Until you know which one it is, nobody can relax. You watch as the distant shape slowly becomes clearer. The wind is favorable. Your ship continues toward it. You notice men checking weapons, not because an attack has definitely been ordered, but because nobody wants to be unprepared. This is another reality of pirate life. Preparation matters more than excitement. A crew that rushes into danger without thinking can lose everything. A ship can be captured. Men can be injured. The vessel itself can be damaged. And if the other ship is stronger, the pirates may become the ones running for their lives. You look around. The crew is no longer behaving like a group of tired sailors. They are becoming a fighting crew. Weapons are brought out. Equipment is checked. The deck is cleared of anything that could become dangerous during a struggle. You are told where to stand. For the first time, the ordinary routine of the day has disappeared. You can hear the sea beneath the ship. You can hear the wind in the rigging. And beneath those sounds, there is something else. Silence. Not complete silence, but the quiet concentration of men waiting for something to happen. The distant ship grows larger. You can now see its sails. You can make out the shape of its hull. You try to understand what kind of vessel it is. Nobody speaks loudly. Everyone is watching. Then someone gives another order. The ship changes direction slightly. The sails are adjusted. The crew moves quickly. You follow as best you can. This is not the moment for hesitation. You realize that the men around you have practiced these movements many times. They know where to go. They know what their ship can do. You are still learning. The other vessel continues approaching. For a few minutes, the two ships move through the same empty stretch of ocean. There is no land nearby, no harbor, no authority close enough to intervene. Only two wooden ships and the sea between them. You begin to understand why encounters at sea could become so serious. Once two vessels came within sight of each other, there were very few easy ways to avoid the situation. A ship could attempt to escape, it could change direction, it could use the wind, it could try to keep its distance. But the sea is enormous, and ships do not move like modern boats. They depend on wind, sails, currents, and the skill of the crew. Every decision takes time. The distant vessel is now close enough for you to see movement on its deck. Men are watching your ship too. They know you are there. You wonder what they are thinking. Perhaps they are afraid. Perhaps they are preparing their own weapons. Perhaps they believe your ship is harmless. For a moment, neither side knows what will happen. Then the captain speaks. The crew reacts. You feel the tension increase. Your heart beats faster. This is the moment when the stories of piracy begin to feel real. But even now, there is no guarantee of battle. A ship at sea is always making calculations. Is the other vessel worth approaching? Does it appear heavily armed? Is there valuable cargo? How many sailors are aboard? Can the wind provide an advantage? What happens if the attack fails? Piracy is not simply courage, it is risk. And every successful pirate crew has to understand that. You watch the other ship carefully. The distance between the vessels continues to shrink. You can now see more details. The rigging, the deck, the sailors, the shape of the hull. You can almost imagine the conversations taking place on the other side. Then, unexpectedly, the captain gives another command. The crew begins to alter course. You realize that the decision has been made. The two ships will not meet directly. Your vessel begins to pass away from the other ship. You are confused at first. After all the preparation, nothing happens. No attack, no cannon fire, no treasure. Only two ships passing in the vast ocean. And yet, the crew does not seem disappointed. They simply return to their work. You begin to understand. Pirates did not attack every ship they saw. They had to choose their moments. They had to consider the risks. Sometimes the safest decision was to continue sailing. The encounter disappears behind you. The tension slowly leaves the deck. Someone laughs. Another sailor returns a weapon to its place. The ordinary rhythm begins again. You look back one final time. The other ship is already becoming smaller. Soon it will disappear completely. And you realize that the ocean is full of moments like this. Possibilities that appear on the horizon and vanish again. Threats that never become battles. Opportunities that are ignored. Decisions made in minutes that could determine the fate of everyone aboard. The afternoon wind continues to carry your ship forward. The danger has passed. for now. But you know something has changed. You have seen how quickly an ordinary day can become uncertain, and you understand that somewhere ahead, another ship may appear. Next time, the decision may be different. The ship has disappeared behind you now. The horizon is empty again, and the tension that had gathered across the deck has slowly faded. But the encounter has left you thinking. Until this afternoon, piracy had seemed like something distant, something belonging to stories. Now you understand how quickly an ordinary day can change. A shape appears on the horizon. The crew watches. Weapons are prepared, orders are given, and for a few quiet minutes, everyone aboard has to consider the possibility that their lives may be about to change. You look around the deck. The sailors have returned to their ordinary tasks. Someone is repairing a line, another is checking the sail, 2 men are speaking quietly near the mast. It is almost as though nothing happened, but you know better. The crew has learned to live with uncertainty. That may be one of the hardest parts of life at sea. You never know exactly what the next hour will bring. A calm afternoon can become a storm. A quiet horizon can reveal an enemy. A routine journey can suddenly become an opportunity. And sometimes the greatest danger is not another ship at all. It is the weather. You notice the change before most of the others. The wind feels different. It has become cooler. The air carries a heavier smell of salt. The surface of the sea is no longer as smooth. Small waves are beginning to build. You glance upward. The clouds have changed. Earlier the sky had been pale and open. Now darker clouds are gathering in the distance. The experienced sailors notice too. One of them looks toward the horizon and then toward the sails. Another begins checking the rigging. The captain gives an order. The crew moves. There is no panic, not yet, but there is urgency. You begin to understand why experienced sailors learn to read the sky. The sea does not always give much warning. A storm can approach gradually, almost unnoticed. Then the wind strengthens, the waves grow, the ship begins to move differently, and suddenly everyone is working. The first strong gust strikes the sails, the canvas snaps loudly, the ship leans, you grab a nearby rope. For a moment, your stomach drops, then the vessel rises again. The crew is already reducing the sail. You are told to help. You pull. The rope feels heavier now. The wind is fighting against you. Another gust hits. The sail cracks like a great sheet of cloth being torn through the sky. Rain begins to fall. At first, it's only a few drops. Then more. Within minutes, your clothing is wet. The deck becomes slippery. The wooden boards shine beneath the gray sky. You look out across the sea. The horizon has almost disappeared. Everything has become darker. The ship rises on a larger wave, then drops into the hollow behind it. You hold on tightly. This is no longer the gentle movement you experienced during the morning. The ocean is beginning to show another side of itself. The crew works without stopping. One sailor shouts an instruction. Another responds. Ropes are secured. Sails are adjusted. Anything loose is tied down. There is no room for carelessness. A barrel rolling across the deck could injure someone. A loose rope could become dangerous. A damaged sail could make the situation worse. Every member of the crew has a role. You do your best to follow the others. Night has finally settled over the ship. The storm is behind you now, but the deck still carries signs of what happened. Ropes lie where they were dragged. The sails have been checked and secured. Water has been cleared from parts of the deck. The crew is tired. You are tired too. For the first time since morning, there is nothing urgent demanding your attention. The ship moves through the dark sea at a steady pace. Above you, the sky has cleared. Stars appear between the remaining clouds. You look upward and realize how bright they are. There are no city lights here, no lamps burning along streets, no buildings hiding the horizon, only darkness and stars. It is beautiful, but there is also something unsettling about it. The ocean around you is almost completely invisible. You can hear it, you can feel it, but you cannot see very far into the darkness. The ship becomes a small island of light in an enormous black world. Lanterns glow across the deck. Their light moves with the motion of the vessel. The flames flicker whenever the wind reaches them. A sailor passes nearby carrying a lantern. For a moment, his face appears in the warm light. Then he disappears into darkness again. This is how the night watch works. Even while most of the crew sleeps, someone must remain awake. The ship cannot simply stop paying attention because it is dark. The sea continues moving, the wind continues changing, and another vessel could still appear. You are told that your watch will come later. For now, you are allowed to rest. But before you go below, you remain on deck for a while. There is something peaceful about the night after the storm. The sea has become calmer. The waves rise and fall beneath the moonlight. The ship moves quietly through them. You hear the occasional creak of timber, the soft snap of a rope, the distant call of a sailor, then silence again. You begin thinking about the men around you. During the day, they work together. During danger, they depend on each other. But at night, when the ship becomes quiet, each man has time to think. Some may think about money, some about home, some about the next port. Some may think about the risks they have taken, and perhaps some wonder whether they will ever return to the life they once knew. The Golden Age of Piracy was filled with men who had left ordinary lives behind. Some had been sailors, some had worked in ports, some had served aboard naval or merchant vessels. Others may have been drawn toward piracy because life ashore offered little opportunity. Morning arrives quietly. You wake to the familiar movement of the ship beneath you. For a moment, you do not remember where you are. Then the sound of timber creaking brings everything back. You are aboard a pirate ship. The night has passed. The sea is calmer now, and the first pale light of dawn is beginning to reach the deck above. You sit up slowly. Your body is still tired from yesterday. Your shoulders ache from the work. Your hands are sore from ropes. But there is no time to remain in bed. The ship has its own rhythm, and the rhythm does not stop because you are tired. You climb toward the deck. The morning air is cooler than you expected. The sky is clear. The sea stretches in every direction. For a moment, you wonder how anyone could ever become accustomed to a view like this. Then you notice the crew. The same men who were sleeping only a short time ago are already beginning another day. Someone is preparing the morning meal. Someone else is checking the sails. Another sailor is examining the deck for anything damaged during the storm. You realize that the work never truly ends. Even after a dangerous night, the ship must be prepared for another day. You are given a small task. A section of rope needs to be inspected. You kneel beside it and run your fingers along the rough fibers. The rope has become worn. Salt has dried into the strands. There are places where the fibers are beginning to separate. A sailor notices and tells you that it will need replacing soon. You look at the rope differently now. Yesterday, you might have thought of it as an ordinary piece of equipment. Today, you understand that something as simple as a rope can affect the entire ship. If it breaks at the wrong moment, a sail can move unexpectedly. A load can fall. A sailor can be injured. Small things matter when you are surrounded by ocean. The morning meal is brought out. Again, it is simple. You eat while sitting near the edge of the deck. The sun rises higher. The light spreads across the water. The storm seems almost impossible to believe now. Yesterday, the sea was dark and violent. Today, it is calm enough to reflect the sky. This is the strange nature of life aboard a sailing ship. The same ocean can feel peaceful 1 hour and terrifying the next. You finish eating and begin another task. As you work, you notice that the crew is more relaxed than yesterday. There is laughter. A few sailors exchange stories. Someone sings quietly while working. The mood reminds you that these men are not simply a crew. They are a community forced into a very small world. They know one another's habits. They know who works quickly. They know who complains. They know who can be trusted when something goes wrong. They also know who might cause trouble. Living together at sea means learning these things. There is no privacy, no easy way to avoid someone. They may still have to work beside one another a few minutes later. If someone becomes sick, everyone knows. If someone performs well during a difficult moment, everyone remembers. You begin to understand why trust matters so much aboard a pirate vessel. A sailor may be willing to take risks for himself, but when the ship is in danger, his actions affect everyone. The crew therefore has to function together. You watch the captain moving across the deck. He does not need to shout constantly. The sailors understand his instructions. He has authority, but authority aboard a pirate ship is not always as simple as the stories suggest. These men have chosen to sail together. They may accept a captain because they believe he is capable. They expect him to make good decisions. They expect him to share whatever is taken fairly. And they expect him to lead when danger arrives. A captain who loses the confidence of his crew can find himself in a difficult position. You do not know all of the rules yet, but you are beginning to notice that there is an order to the ship. Everyone has responsibilities. Everyone knows what is expected, and everyone understands that the journey depends upon cooperation. The ship continues forward. By late morning, the horizon remains empty. There are no other sails, no storm clouds, no land, just the steady blue water. The calm gives you time to think. You imagine what life ashore would feel like now. A solid floor beneath your feet, a room that does not move, fresh food, clean water, a bed with enough space to stretch your legs. You realize that all of these things which once seemed ordinary would now feel almost luxurious. But then you look around. The sunlight is bright. The wind is warm. The ship is moving steadily. There is a strange freedom here too. Nobody is telling you where the road ends. There is no road. There is only the horizon. For a moment, you understand why men were willing to spend years at sea. The life was difficult, often dangerous, sometimes miserable, but it offered something that life ashore could not always provide: movement, possibility, and the chance that the next port might bring something different. Of course, possibility also meant uncertainty. A voyage could make you wealthy. It could leave you with nothing. You could find a valuable prize, or you could spend months finding nothing at all. You could return home, or you might never see home again. The ship continues forward. You watch the wake spreading behind you. A long white trail disappears slowly into the distance. The sea leaves no permanent mark. Every mile you travel vanishes behind the ship. You wonder how many sailors have crossed these waters before you. How many ships have passed here? How many disappeared? How many reached their destinations? There is no way to know. The ocean keeps its secrets. You return to your work. The day is still young. The crew is busy. The sails are full. The ship is moving well. And for the moment, everything is calm. But you have already learned not to trust calmness completely. A pirate voyage can change without warning. A distant sail, a sudden storm, a broken mast, a shortage of water, an illness, a mistake. Any one of these can turn an ordinary day into a dangerous one. For now, though, none of them has happened. The ship sails onward beneath the brightening sky. You take another breath of salt air. The horizon waits ahead, and somewhere beyond it is the next part of your journey. By afternoon, the calm sea has begun to feel almost ordinary. You have spent enough time aboard the ship now to understand its basic rhythm. There is always something to do. A rope needs checking, a sail needs adjusting, a deck needs cleaning, a barrel needs moving. Someone needs to take a watch, someone else needs to rest. The work repeats, but the ocean never does. Every hour brings a slightly different sky, a different wind, a different pattern of waves. As you stand near the rail, one of the older sailors points toward the water. He tells you that the color of the sea can change depending on the depth and the weather. You look over the side. The water beneath the ship appears deep and dark. You cannot see the bottom. That thought makes the ocean seem even larger. The sailor laughs quietly when he notices your expression. He tells you not to worry. The ship has crossed these waters before. You ask how far it is to land. He gives you an answer, but it means little to you. At sea, distance feels different. A place that might seem close on a map can take days to reach. Wind determines speed. Currents can help or hinder. A ship may spend hours moving in the wrong direction simply because the weather refuses to cooperate. You begin to understand that sailors do not think about distance in the same way people ashore do. They think in days, in watches, in favorable winds, in safe harbors. The afternoon passes. Then someone notices birds. A small group circles above the water. You watch them disappear toward the horizon. The sight of birds creates a strange feeling. Land cannot be far away. Perhaps an island is nearby. Perhaps the ship is approaching a coastline. For the first time in many days, you realize that the horizon may soon change. The crew begins paying closer attention. The captain studies the sea. A sailor climbs higher to look ahead. Everyone is watching. Then, far in the distance, you see something. At first, it looks like a cloud. Then it becomes darker. A shape rises above the horizon. Land. You stare. It is difficult to believe. After so much open water, even a low strip of land seems enormous. As the ship continues, the shape becomes clearer. A coastline, hills, perhaps a few trees. The sight changes the mood aboard the vessel immediately. Men begin talking about what they might find there. Fresh water, fresh food, a tavern, a proper bed, news from other ships, perhaps a chance to sell or exchange goods. For some, the port may mean pleasure. For others, it means business. A pirate ship needs supplies. Water must be replaced. Food must be obtained. Ropes and sails may need repairs. Weapons may need attention. A ship cannot remain at sea forever. You listen as the sailors discuss the port ahead. You realize that ports are more than places to rest. They are where information travels. News about ships. News about patrols. News about wars. News about opportunities. A sailor arriving from another harbor may know something that could change the plans of an entire crew. This is one reason ports matter so much to sailors. The ocean may separate people, but ports bring them together. As the coastline grows larger, you begin seeing more signs of human life. A small boat moves across the water, then another. You can hear faint sounds carried by the wind. The ship begins adjusting its course. The crew becomes busy again. Sails are changed. Lines are secured. Everyone prepares for arrival. You realize how different the ship feels near land. Out at sea, the horizon belonged to the ocean. Near the coast, everything becomes more complicated. There are shallows, rocks, other vessels, currents, channels. The crew must know where it is safe to sail. One wrong decision could damage the hull. The captain watches carefully. You remain near the rail, staring at the approaching shore. You have spent enough time surrounded by water that land now feels almost unreal. You imagine walking on solid ground. You imagine standing still without the constant movement beneath your feet. You imagine sleeping in a room that does not sway. The ship continues toward the harbor. More boats appear. Some are small fishing vessels. Others carry goods. You see people moving along the shore. The sounds of the port become clearer. Voices, wood striking wood, ropes being pulled, animals calling, people shouting instructions. After days of open sea, the noise is almost overwhelming. The ship slows. The crew begins preparing for the final approach. You are told to help secure a line. You take your position. The vessel moves carefully toward the harbor. A rope is thrown. Someone catches it. Another line follows. The ship shifts slightly as it is pulled toward the dock. Finally, the movement beneath your feet begins to slow. Then it stops. You stand still. The ground is no longer moving. At least, it does not seem to be. You take a few steps. Your legs feel strange. Your body has become accustomed to the sea. For a moment, the solid dock feels as though it is moving instead. The sailors laugh. They have experienced this before. You look toward the town. After so much time aboard the ship, the buildings seem almost impossibly solid. Stone walls, wooden structures, narrow streets, people carrying goods, smoke rising from cooking fires. Everything feels busy, alive, and different. The captain gives instructions. The crew begins unloading what must be taken ashore. You realize that the voyage has entered a new stage. The sea has been your world. Now the port becomes your world for a while. But you have learned enough to know that a pirate's journey does not end when the ship reaches land. It only changes. There will be supplies to find, information to gather, repairs to make, and decisions about where the ship will go next. You look back at the vessel. Its sails hang quietly now. The deck is almost still. After everything you have experienced aboard it, the ship already feels strangely familiar. You know you will return to it. You do not yet know where it will take you, but the next voyage is already beginning to take shape. The first thing you notice about the port is the noise. After so many days surrounded by nothing but wind and water, the sounds of land seem almost overwhelming. Voices come from every direction. Sailors call to one another. Workers carry crates along the dock. Carts roll over uneven ground. Ropes scrape against wooden posts. Somewhere nearby, an animal cries out. You stand on the deck for a moment, simply listening. The ship feels strangely quiet beneath all of it. It has carried you across the sea, through storms and long empty days. Now it is tied securely to the dock. For a little while, the ocean is no longer in control. The crew begins unloading supplies. Barrels are carried ashore. Bundles of rope are moved. Sails that need repair are taken down. You are given another task almost immediately. There is no long celebration for arriving at port. A ship that has spent days at sea needs attention. Every small problem that was ignored during the voyage must now be dealt with. You carry a heavy bundle toward the dock. It is more difficult than you expected. Your arms begin to ache. One of the older sailors notices and takes part of the load without saying much. You realize that this is another part of life aboard the ship. People depend upon one another. The work continues. Fresh water is one of the first things the crew looks for. Water is more valuable than almost anything else aboard a ship. Without it, a voyage cannot continue. Food is needed too. Some supplies may have survived the journey in good condition. Others may need replacing. You watch barrels being opened and inspected. The smell of stale provisions rises into the air. Food has to survive heat, moisture, salt, and time. In port, however, there are choices. Fresh bread, fruit, meat, fish, vegetables. For the first time in days, you see foods that do not come from a barrel or a sack. The sight alone makes you hungry. The sailors begin talking about where they will eat later. Some have favorite places in the town. Others want to visit taverns where sailors gather. You begin to understand the importance of information. For a pirate crew, information can be as valuable as supplies. A rumor about a merchant ship carrying valuable cargo might change a voyage. A warning about naval patrols could save a crew from capture. News about a war might open new opportunities. News about a dangerous harbor might keep the ship away. The port is full of such information. The sailors listen carefully. They ask questions. They compare stories. Nobody accepts every rumor as truth. Still, every piece of information is considered. You remain close to the crew as they move through the busy streets. The town feels enormous compared with the ship. Buildings rise on both sides. People pass constantly. Some are sailors, some are merchants, some are workers. Others have no connection to the sea at all. You notice how different they look from the crew. Their clothes are cleaner. Their movements are calmer. They are not constantly watching the weather. They can walk somewhere without thinking about the deck shifting beneath their feet. For a moment, you envy them. Then you hear a sailor laughing nearby. The feeling passes. The sea has become your world too. Eventually, the crew reaches a crowded tavern. The entrance is narrow. Inside, the room is warm and noisy. Conversation fills every corner. The smell of cooked food reaches you immediately. After days of simple meals aboard ship, the smell seems extraordinary. The crew finds a place to sit. For the first time in a long while, nobody needs to balance themselves against the movement of the sea. You sit down. The chair does not move. The floor does not tilt. It feels almost strange. Food arrives. You eat slowly at first, then faster. Nobody speaks much during the first few minutes. Everyone is hungry. Afterward, conversation begins. The sailors talk about the voyage. They discuss the storm, the ship they saw on the horizon, the condition of the sails, the distance they have traveled. Danger becomes easier to discuss after it has passed. The storm becomes a story. The strange ship becomes a story. The uncertainty becomes something that happened yesterday. That is another way sailors survive difficult lives. They turn fear into memory, and memory into a story. As the evening continues, more people enter the tavern. Some are strangers. The crew becomes quieter when unfamiliar sailors approach. A man sits nearby and begins talking about a merchant vessel that recently left the harbor. He describes its cargo, its route, its crew. The pirates listen without appearing too interested. You realize they are gathering information. Nobody announces a plan. Nobody speaks openly about an attack. But everyone understands that information may matter later. Eventually, the man leaves. The crew looks at one another. The captain says very little. But you can tell that the voyage may soon have a new direction. You finish your meal. Outside, the evening has begun. Lanterns glow along the streets. The harbor is filled with silhouettes of ships. You walk back toward the dock with the crew. The air smells different here. Salt mixes with smoke. food, tar, and wood. You look across the harbor. Merchant ships sit beside fishing boats. Small craft move between larger vessels. The whole waterfront seems alive. But you also notice guards and patrols watching the docks. The freedom of the port is not complete. Authority is present too. You remember that the crew cannot remain careless. A pirate ship may be welcome when it brings trade or pays for supplies. But if its identity becomes known, the same harbor can become dangerous. The crew returns to the ship. Night has arrived. Supplies must be secured. Repairs must be checked. The vessel must be ready before departure. You stand on the deck and look toward the town. Only yesterday, the world seemed to be nothing but ocean. Now you have walked through crowded streets, eaten fresh food, and heard news from distant ships. The voyage feels different already. But you understand something. The port is not the end of the journey. It is the place where the next journey is decided. Tomorrow the ship may leave again, and this time you may have a better idea of where you are going. You look toward the dark water beyond the harbor. The sea waits quietly, and somewhere beyond the horizon, another story is already beginning. The next morning begins with a different feeling. You wake aboard the ship knowing that the crew has already learned something important in the port. There is a merchant vessel somewhere beyond the harbor. Its route is known, its cargo has been discussed, and now the mood among the sailors has changed. Nobody announces what will happen. There is no dramatic speech. Instead, the crew simply becomes more focused. Supplies are secured, repairs are checked, water is brought aboard, the sails are inspected once again. You notice that the ordinary preparations feel more serious this time. The ship is preparing to leave. As you work, you wonder what the information from the tavern will mean. You have heard enough to understand that a pirate voyage is not simply a search for treasure. A crew has to know where ships travel. It has to understand the waters. It has to know when a target is vulnerable. And most importantly, it has to decide whether the risk is worth taking. The harbor slowly disappears behind you. The ship moves into open water again. At first, the coastline remains visible. Then it becomes smaller. Soon, there is nothing ahead but sea. The crew returns to its familiar routine. But you notice that everyone is watching the horizon more carefully. The captain studies the wind. Another sailor keeps looking toward the direction of the merchant route. You begin to understand that waiting is part of piracy too. A crew may spend hours doing nothing more exciting than sailing. The opportunity they are looking for might not appear. The ship could pass through an empty stretch of ocean for days, and every day costs food, water, patience, and time. The afternoon arrives. The sea remains calm. You begin to wonder whether the information from the port was useful at all. Then a sailor calls from above. A sail. Everyone looks up. Far ahead, a white shape appears against the blue horizon. The ship is still distant, but it is moving in your direction. The atmosphere changes immediately. Men stop talking. Tasks are abandoned. The captain gives instructions. You move where you are told. This time, there is no uncertainty about why everyone is preparing. The crew believes this may be the vessel they heard about. You look toward it. It is difficult to judge its size from this distance. You can see its sails clearly now. Slowly, the ship grows larger. The crew begins positioning the vessel. The wind is favorable. Your ship turns slightly. The distance between the two vessels begins to close. You can feel your heartbeat. Nobody knows exactly how the encounter will end. The other crew may resist. They may try to escape. They may surrender. They may have more weapons than expected. Every possibility exists. The captain watches carefully. He doesn't rush. That surprises you. After everything you have heard about pirates, you expected impatience. Instead, the crew waits. They use the wind. They study the other ship. They look for signs of how many people are aboard. They examine the sails. They consider the vessel's position. You realize that an attack at sea is a problem to be solved. It is not simply a moment of violence. If the pirates approach badly, they can lose the advantage. If they misjudge the wind, the target can escape. If the other ship is heavily armed, the situation can become dangerous very quickly. The vessels continue toward one another. Now you can see movement on the merchant deck. The sailors there have noticed you. They begin preparing too. You imagine what they must be thinking. Perhaps they suspect the truth. Perhaps they are hoping your ship will simply pass. The distance becomes smaller. The captain gives another order. Your ship changes course. The crew moves with practiced speed. You find yourself holding your breath. Then the captain raises his voice. The final approach begins. The two ships are now close enough for you to see individual figures. The merchant vessel looks larger than you expected. That makes you nervous. There may be more sailors aboard than you first imagined. There may also be weapons. The crew remains focused. You are told to stay out of the way unless you receive a direct order. For once, you are grateful. You watch from behind the others. The sea rises gently between the ships. The sails strain in the wind. Ropes creak. Wood groans. Then a voice comes from the other vessel. You cannot understand the words. Another voice answers. For a few moments, the ships move side by side. Nothing happens. No gunfire, no shouting, no sudden attack. The captain watches, then he makes a decision. Your ship moves closer. You realize that this is the moment when everything could change. The crew prepares to board. Men check their equipment. Others secure lines. You hear footsteps moving across the deck. The atmosphere becomes completely silent. The merchant ship is only a few yards away. You can see the faces of the men standing on its deck. They look frightened. You feel frightened too. Then the first rope is thrown. It lands across the gap. A sailor catches it. Another line follows. The two vessels are now connected. The sea continues moving beneath them. You look from one ship to the other. There is no turning back now. The captain gives the order. The crew moves forward. And for the first time, you are about to see what happens when a pirate crew decides that a ship on the horizon is worth taking. The rope lands across the gap. For a moment, nobody moves. The two ships rise and fall on the same restless water. You can hear the creaking of timber. You can hear the wind passing through the sails. You can hear your own breathing. Then the crew moves. A sailor pulls the line tight. Another secures it. The distance between the vessels becomes smaller. You remain behind the others, watching. The merchant sailors are gathered on their deck. Some carry weapons. Others stand uncertainly near the mast. Nobody knows exactly what will happen next. The captain of your ship calls across the water. His voice is calm. The words are difficult to hear over the wind. There is no immediate answer. For a few seconds, the silence continues. Then someone on the merchant ship responds. The exchange is brief. You cannot hear every word, but you understand the meaning. Your captain is giving them a choice. They can resist, or they can surrender. The merchant crew looks toward one another. Their ship is larger, but size alone does not guarantee safety. Your crew has approached with purpose. The merchant sailors know this. Another voice calls out. This time, the answer is clearer. The merchant captain does not want to fight. The atmosphere changes immediately. The men who are preparing themselves relax slightly. Nobody celebrates. There is still tension. A surrender at sea does not mean that everyone suddenly becomes comfortable. The two crews are still strangers. The merchant sailors do not know what will happen to them. Your crew does not know what they may find aboard. The first pirate steps across the gap. His boots land on the merchant deck. Another follows. Then another. You watch carefully. The boarding is controlled. There is no wild rush. The pirates spread out. They secure the deck. They check the sails. They make sure nobody is hiding near the stern. The merchant sailors remain together. You notice their expressions. Some look angry. Others look frightened. A few seem almost relieved. You realize that people aboard a merchant ship are not simply characters in a story. They have families, homes, worries, plans. They may have spent months preparing for this voyage. Now everything has changed in a few minutes. The pirates begin searching the vessel. They look for weapons first. Then they examine the cargo. Barrels are opened. Crates are checked. Bundles are moved. You stand near the rail and watch. At first, there is nothing remarkable. Food, cloth, tools, ordinary goods. Then someone calls from below. A sailor has found something valuable. The crew gathers. You cannot see exactly what it is at first. Then a crate is opened. Inside are goods carefully packed for transport. The pirates begin calculating their value. There is no treasure chest filled with gold. No mountain of coins. The reality is much less dramatic. Cargo at sea often consists of useful goods, things that can be sold, things that can be exchanged, things that have value because someone somewhere needs them. You begin to understand something important. Piracy is not always about finding treasure. It is about taking valuable property. A ship carrying ordinary cargo can still be worth pursuing. The crew continues searching. They find more goods. Some are useful to the pirates themselves. Others can be sold when they reach another port. The captain watches the process. He does not appear excited. He is calculating. How much is the cargo worth? How much can the ship carry? How long will it take to move everything? Is the captured vessel worth keeping? Could another ship appear while they are occupied? Every decision carries a risk. The merchant captain is brought forward. The pirate captain asks questions. Where was the ship headed? Where did it come from? What other vessels had been seen? The merchant captain answers cautiously. You realize that the information may be as valuable as the cargo. A merchant captain knows the routes. He may know which harbors are busy. He may know where naval patrols have been seen. He may know which waters are dangerous. The questions continue. The answers are recorded mentally by the crew. Nobody is shouting now. The encounter has become almost businesslike. That is perhaps the strangest part. From a distance, piracy sounds like chaos. Up close, you see organization. The crew needs discipline. The captain needs information. The sailors need to know their jobs. Without organization, a boarding could become dangerous for everyone. Eventually, the search is complete. The pirates have taken what they consider valuable. The merchant crew remains aboard their vessel. The captain makes another decision. The ships cannot remain connected forever. The ropes are released. The captured vessel begins drifting away. For a moment, the two ships move beside one another. You look across the water. The merchant sailors are watching you. You wonder what they will tell people when they reach port. Perhaps they will describe the pirates as cruel, perhaps as frightening, perhaps they will simply describe them as another danger of the sea. You turn away. The crew returns to its own ship. The atmosphere is strangely quiet. There is no cheering, no dramatic celebration. Instead, the sailors begin putting everything in order. Cargo is secured. Lines are coiled. The sails are checked. The deck is cleaned. The ship returns to its ordinary rhythm. You expected the encounter to feel larger. Instead, it has left you thoughtful. You realize how quickly an ordinary day at sea can become something completely different. Only hours ago, you were watching an empty horizon. Now another crew has lost its cargo. Your own ship has gained supplies. And somewhere behind you, another vessel is sailing away with the memory of what happened. The sun begins to fall toward the horizon. The sea turns darker. You stand near the stern and watch the merchant ship disappear. The encounter is over, but you understand that the voyage has changed. Your crew now has more supplies, more information, and perhaps more confidence. Yet the sea remains exactly as it was. It offers no guarantee that the next encounter will be so simple. A larger ship may be waiting beyond the horizon. A naval patrol may appear. A storm may arrive. Or nothing may happen at all. For tonight, however, the ship sails onward. The crew settles into the evening watch. The wind fills the sails. The wake stretches behind you. You look into the darkness ahead. You have now seen what happens when a pirate crew chooses a target, and you are beginning to understand that the greatest danger may not be the boarding itself. It may be what comes afterward. The night after the boarding is quieter than you expected. The captured cargo has been secured below deck, and the ship has returned to its ordinary rhythm. There is no celebration, no great feast, no dramatic speech about victory. The sailors simply continue working. Some stand watch, others repair a section of rope that was damaged during the encounter, a few check the sails, the rest settle wherever they can find a place to rest. You begin to understand that life at sea rarely gives anyone much time to enjoy what has just happened. There is always another task waiting. You lie awake for a while, listening to the ship. The timber creaks beneath you. Water moves against the hull. The wind pushes gently against the sails. For the first time since the merchant ship disappeared behind the horizon, you have time to think. You remember the faces of the merchant sailors. They had looked frightened. Some had been angry. Others had seemed relieved that the encounter ended without a serious fight. You had expected piracy to feel like the stories people tell ashore. Instead, it felt uncertain, complicated, and strangely ordinary. Morning arrives slowly. The sky is pale when you step onto the deck. The sea is calm. The crew is already awake. A sailor is preparing breakfast near the galley. Another is checking the lines. You notice something different, however. The captain is speaking with several of the senior sailors. They are studying a chart. You cannot hear everything they say, but you understand that the crew is deciding where to go next. The cargo they captured has changed the situation. They now have more goods aboard. That means they also have more responsibility. Cargo takes up space. Cargo adds weight. Cargo must be protected, and eventually it must be sold or exchanged. The captain points toward a location on the chart. A port. You have heard its name before. It is not the place where you recently stopped. It is farther away. The sailors discuss the route. Some want to sail directly there. Others are concerned about patrols. The captain listens. Nobody interrupts. Finally, he makes the decision. The ship changes course. You watch the coastline in the distance disappear. Once again, the open ocean surrounds you. The days begin to blend together. Morning watches, afternoon work, evening meals, night watches, sleep. Then the same routine begins again. But the crew is not completely relaxed. The captured cargo has made them valuable. It has also made them a target. You begin to notice how often sailors scan the horizon. Every sail in the distance receives attention. Every unfamiliar shape is studied. A ship may be harmless, or it may belong to authorities. It may be another pirate crew. It may be a merchant vessel. From far away, there is often no way to know. One afternoon, a dark shape appears ahead. Everyone becomes quiet. The captain asks for information. The sailor watching from above describes what he sees. The vessel is too distant to identify. Your ship continues sailing. Nobody wants to change course without reason. The shape grows larger. Slowly, the outline becomes clearer. It is a merchant vessel. Relief spreads through the crew, but the captain does not relax completely. The merchant ship might not be alone. Another vessel could be nearby. Or the merchant crew might have seen you and decided to avoid you. The two ships pass at a distance. Nothing happens. You realize how much tension can exist in a simple meeting at sea. The merchant vessel disappears behind you. The crew returns to its work. You begin to appreciate the endless uncertainty of the ocean. There are no roads, no signs, no walls. The horizon provides very little information. A person ashore can often look down a street and know what lies ahead. At sea, you can look for miles and still know almost nothing. That uncertainty is one of the reasons experienced sailors are valuable. They understand wind, currents, weather, navigation, and the behavior of other ships. You are still learning. Every day teaches you something. You learn how to recognize changes in the wind. You learn how ropes should be handled. You learn which parts of the deck become dangerous during bad weather. You learn how quickly a calm sea can change. Most importantly, you learn to pay attention. The crew survives because people notice small things before they become large problems. A loose line, a damaged sail, a strange cloud, a distant sail, a change in the color of the water. Anything might matter. Several days pass. Then the weather begins to change. The wind becomes stronger. Clouds gather toward the horizon. The captain watches them carefully. The sailors begin securing loose equipment. You have seen storms before, but this one seems different. The air becomes heavy. The sea darkens. The first drops of rain strike the deck. Nobody panics. The crew has done this many times. Sails are reduced. Cargo is checked. Lines are secured. Everything that might come loose is tied down. You move where you are instructed. The wind grows stronger. The ship begins rising and falling more sharply. You grip the rail. The horizon disappears behind rain. For several minutes you can see almost nothing. The ship groans beneath the pressure. You hear orders shouted across the deck. Every sailor has a task. There is no time for confusion. You understand now that the greatest danger aboard a pirate ship may not always come from another person. The sea itself can be more powerful than any enemy. The storm continues into the evening. Rain strikes your face. Water runs across the deck. The sails pull violently against their ropes. You hold on and wait. Eventually the wind begins to weaken. The waves settle. The clouds slowly separate. The storm moves away. Nobody celebrates. The sailors simply begin checking the ship. Again, there is work. Again, there is something to repair. You look around the wet deck. The crew is exhausted, but the ship is still moving. The captured cargo is still below. The next port is still ahead. And tomorrow, the ordinary routine will begin again. You realize that this is what the pirate life truly is. Not endless adventure, not constant treasure, but long stretches of waiting, difficult work, sudden danger, and brief moments when everything changes. You look toward the dark horizon. Somewhere beyond it is the next port, and somewhere beyond that, another uncertain day at sea. By the following morning, the sea has returned to its ordinary rhythm. The storm has passed. The clouds are breaking apart, and pale sunlight moves across the water. You stand near the rail and watch the waves. It is difficult to believe that only a few hours ago, the same sea was throwing the ship from side to side. The deck is still wet. Ropes hang heavily with water. A section of sail has been damaged. One of the crew is already repairing it. Another is checking the mast. Nobody complains. The work simply begins. You have started to understand that this is perhaps the most important rule of life aboard the ship. Something is always waiting to be repaired. Something is always running out. Something is always demanding attention. A pirate ship may be feared by other vessels, but it is still a wooden ship surrounded by an enormous ocean. Wood can break, rope can snap, sails can tear, food can spoil, water can disappear, and people can become exhausted. The crew knows this. That is why the morning after a storm is never a morning for celebration. It is a morning for inspection. You are asked to help check several ropes along the deck. You run your hands over the wet fibers. Some are rough, others have begun to fray. An older sailor shows you how to recognize a rope that may fail. He explains that a rope rarely gives a warning at the exact moment it breaks. The warning comes earlier. Small damage, loose fibers, weak sections. The sailor tells you to notice these things. You nod. Another lesson learned. The ship continues toward the distant port. The captain has calculated that they should reach it within several days, if the wind remains favorable. That estimate seems simple, but you have learned not to trust the ocean completely. Wind can change, currents can shift, storms can appear without warning. A journey that should take 3 days can become 5. A journey that should take 5 can become 10. That uncertainty affects everything. The crew must carry enough food and water to survive delays. They must also leave enough space for whatever cargo they hope to acquire. Every decision has consequences. As the day passes, you watch the sailors dividing their time between work and rest. There is no single moment when everyone sleeps. The ship must continue moving. Someone is always watching. You begin to understand the meaning of the watches. A sailor's life is measured differently from life ashore. You do not simply work during the day and sleep at night. You sleep when your watch is over. You eat when there is time. You work whenever the ship requires it. The schedule follows the sea. By afternoon, the weather becomes warmer. The wind weakens. The ship slows. The crew adjusts the sails. For a while, almost nothing happens. You sit near the mast. The ocean stretches in every direction. No land is visible. No other ships appear. There is only blue water and sky. This emptiness can be peaceful. It can also be frightening. You realize that if something went wrong here, there would be no road leading to help. There would be no nearby town, no doctor waiting around the corner, no easy way home. The ship itself is the only world you have. The people aboard it are the only people immediately available to help. That makes the crew's relationships more important than you first understood. Arguments happen. People disagree. Some sailors do not like one another, but when danger comes, those differences often disappear. A sailor holding a rope depends on the person securing the other end. A man climbing the mast depends on someone below. The person steering depends on the people watching the sails. Every person has a role, and every role matters. Toward evening, the wind begins to strengthen again. The ship picks up speed. The captain seems pleased. The crew makes good progress through the night. You are given a watch near the stern. The sky is clear. Stars appear above you. You look upward. Without the lights of a town, the night sky seems enormous. The stars appear brighter than you have ever seen them. For a moment, the pirate ship feels almost peaceful. You understand why sailors can become attached to the sea, despite everything it can do to them. There is something beautiful about being surrounded by darkness and stars, with nothing but the sound of water beside you. But the peace does not last forever. Near midnight, a sailor notices something on the horizon. A faint light. Everyone becomes alert. The light is too far away to identify. It could be another ship. It could be a coastal settlement. It could be a lantern on a small fishing vessel. The captain watches it carefully. The crew waits. Slowly, the light changes position. It is moving. That means it is almost certainly a ship. The question is what kind. The captain orders the vessel to maintain its course. Nobody wants to reveal too much. The distant ship continues moving. For several minutes, neither vessel approaches the other. Then the light disappears. The crew remains silent. Perhaps the ship changed direction. Perhaps it passed behind a swell. Perhaps it simply moved too far away. You realize how much of life at sea is built around incomplete information. You rarely know everything. You make decisions with whatever you can see. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes it is not. The rest of the night passes quietly. By dawn, the strange light is forgotten. Another day begins. The distant port is closer now. Soon, the crew will be able to see land again. But you find yourself thinking about the days ahead. The captured cargo must eventually be sold. The ship needs repairs. The crew needs food and water. And the captain will have to decide where to sail next. The successful boarding has not made life easier. It has simply changed the problems the crew must solve. You look across the morning sea. The sun rises slowly. The ship continues forward. For now, everything is calm, but you have learned not to mistake calm for safety. Out here, the next danger can always be somewhere beyond the horizon. Land finally appears on the horizon. At first, it is only a faint dark line beneath the morning sky. You stare at it for several minutes before you are certain that it is land. After so many days surrounded by open water, the sight feels strangely important. The crew notices it too. The sailors become more active. The captain studies the coastline. A lookout climbs higher. The ship changes course slightly, following the approach toward the harbor. You can already imagine the noise waiting there. People, carts, animals, other ships. After the silence of the ocean, the thought of all that activity feels almost overwhelming. The closer you get, the more details appear. Low hills rise behind the coastline. Small boats move between the larger vessels. Smoke rises from buildings near the waterfront. The harbor is busy. Very busy.
Your ship slows as it approaches. The crew begins preparing for arrival. Lines are checked. Sails are adjusted. The deck is cleared. Everyone knows that arriving safely requires just as much attention as leaving. You watch the water carefully. The harbor entrance is narrower than the open sea. There are rocks and shallow areas that must be avoided. The captain relies on knowledge of the coastline and the experience of the crew. Slowly, the ship enters. The sound of the waves changes. The water becomes calmer. The ship moves between other vessels. Some are merchant ships. Others are smaller fishing boats. You notice flags and colors you do not recognize. The harbor feels like a meeting place for the entire world. Ships arrive from different directions, carrying goods from distant places. Sailors speak with different accents. Merchants argue over prices. Workers move cargo. Nobody seems to stop. Your ship finally reaches the dock. A rope is thrown. Another follows. The crew secures the vessel. Then the movement beneath your feet stops. You step onto the dock. For a moment, the solid ground feels unstable. Your legs still expect the deck to move. The older sailors laugh when they see you. They have experienced this before. You walk slowly. The town feels enormous. You pass stalls filled with food. Fresh bread, fruit, fish, spices. You smell cooking fires. After weeks of preserved food aboard ship, the smells are almost intoxicating. But the crew has more important things to do first. The captured cargo must be unloaded. The ship needs repairs. Water and food must be replaced. The work begins immediately. You help carry goods toward a warehouse. The cargo that seems so important at sea now looks different. On land, it is simply merchandise. Its value depends on finding someone willing to buy it. The captain meets with a merchant. They speak quietly. You cannot hear the details, but money is discussed. So are quantities. The merchant examines several items. He touches the cloth, checks the quality, asks where it came from. The captain answers carefully. You realize that the successful boarding at sea is only the beginning. Now comes another kind of negotiation. At sea,
The crew had taken the cargo. In port, they must turn that cargo into something useful. Money, food, repairs, supplies, perhaps new equipment. The merchant eventually agrees to a price. The crew accepts. The goods begin changing hands. You watch the process. There is no treasure chest, no pile of gold coins spilling across the floor. Instead, piracy looks surprisingly ordinary. Goods are moved, prices are discussed, deals are made, money changes hands. The sailors begin purchasing supplies. Fresh water first, then food, rope, canvas, wood, small tools, anything the ship may need. You notice how carefully the captain spends the money. A successful voyage does not mean that the crew can simply waste everything they have earned. The next voyage must also be paid for. The ship must remain seaworthy. The crew must eat, and unexpected problems can become expensive very quickly. Later, you walk through the harbor with one of the sailors. He points out several different ships. He tells you where they came from. Some are carrying sugar, others carry timber, another is loaded with barrels. You begin to see the harbor as a network. Goods move from one place to another. People move with them. Information moves too. Every ship brings stories. Every sailor carries rumors. Every port connects to another port. And pirates exist inside this enormous network. They depend on it. Without merchants, there would be little cargo to pursue. Without ports, there would be few places to repair ships and obtain supplies. Without sailors sharing information, it would be much harder to know where valuable vessels might be found. The pirate life is connected to the same world it preys upon. That realization stays with you. As evening approaches, the harbor becomes quieter. Some shops close. The crowds begin disappearing. Lanterns appear along the waterfront. Your ship sits quietly at the dock. For the first time in a long while, you know you will sleep without the constant movement of the ocean. You return to the ship. The crew has finished most of the work. New supplies are stacked below deck. The damaged sail has been repaired. Fresh water fills several barrels. Food has been loaded. The vessel is preparing for another voyage. You sit near the stern and look toward the harbor. The day has shown you another side of the pirate world. At sea, you saw danger. You saw pursuit. You saw a merchant vessel surrender. But here in the port, you see the quieter machinery behind it all. Trade, repair, negotiation, supply, information. Without these things, a pirate ship could not remain at sea for long. The darkness deepens. The harbor lights reflect on the water. You hear distant voices from the town. Someone laughs. A bell rings. A rope creaks against a wooden post. Everything feels peaceful. But you know the peace will not last. The captain will eventually decide when to leave. Another stretch of ocean will appear. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another ship may be carrying cargo that someone is willing to risk everything to take. You look back at the dark shape of your own vessel. It no longer feels like a strange place. It feels like home. A dangerous home, an uncomfortable home, but a home nonetheless. Tomorrow, the sea will call again. And when the ship leaves this harbor, you will know much more about what it means to live as a pirate during the Golden Age. The next morning begins before the sun has fully risen. The harbor is quiet compared with the previous evening. A thin mist rests above the water. You can hear ropes moving gently against the wooden posts. The ship is still tied to the dock, but everyone aboard knows that the stay will not last much longer. The captain has made his decision. It is time to leave. You watch as the crew begins preparing the vessel. Fresh water is checked. Food is counted. Ropes are inspected. The repaired sail is raised briefly to make sure it will hold. Every item has to be accounted for. A ship leaving port without enough supplies may regret the decision later. You help carry the final barrels below deck. The work is familiar now. You know where things belong. You know which ropes to avoid stepping on. You understand the difference between ordinary movement and something that requires immediate attention. You have changed since the beginning of the voyage. The ship has changed you. When the final supplies are loaded, the crew releases the lines. The vessel moves away from the dock. The harbor slowly opens behind you. You look back at the buildings. For a moment, you imagine staying there. A solid room, a warm bed, fresh food, dry ground. Then the ship reaches open water. The familiar movement returns beneath your feet. The town begins to shrink. Soon the buildings disappear. The sea surrounds you again. The captain has chosen a new route. This time the crew is not simply following a known merchant path. They are searching for opportunity. That means uncertainty. There is no guarantee that another valuable ship will appear. The crew may sail for days without finding anything. They may discover a target that is too well protected. They may encounter a naval patrol, or they may find nothing at all. You begin to understand that piracy depends heavily on patience. The popular stories make pirates seem constantly active, but most of the time they are waiting for wind, waiting for weather, waiting for a ship, waiting for the right moment. The waiting can be difficult. The same horizon appears every morning. The same waves pass beneath the hull. The same faces surround you. Days can feel almost identical, yet the crew remains alert. A lookout is always watching. The captain checks the horizon repeatedly. Sailors listen for changes in the wind. Nobody wants to miss an opportunity. Several days pass. The weather remains calm. The ship makes steady progress. You begin to settle into the routine again. Your watch, your meals, your sleep, your work. The cycle repeats. Then one afternoon the lookout calls out. A ship. Everyone turns toward the horizon. You immediately feel the old tension return. The vessel is far away, too far to identify. The captain orders the ship to maintain its course. Nobody wants to act too quickly. The ship becomes clearer. This one looks different from the merchant vessel you encountered before. It is smaller. Its sails are arranged differently. The captain studies it carefully. The lookout reports that there may be another vessel behind it. The mood changes. 2 ships. That could mean greater opportunity. It could also mean greater danger. The captain orders everyone to remain ready. The first vessel continues approaching. The second remains farther behind. You begin to wonder whether they are traveling together. If they are, attacking one may bring the other into the fight. The captain waits. He does not reveal the ship's intentions. The crew keeps its distance. The sea is calm enough for both vessels to maneuver easily. That makes the situation more complicated. Eventually, the first ship changes direction. It appears to have noticed you. Your captain watches. The other ship begins moving away. The captain makes another decision. Your vessel changes course. The chase begins. You feel the wind strengthen as the sails fill. The deck becomes busy. Ropes move. Sails are adjusted. The ship leans slightly as it turns. The vessel ahead grows smaller for a moment. Then your ship begins gaining ground. You understand now that speed is one of the most important weapons at sea. A ship cannot take anything if it cannot catch it. The crew works together. Every adjustment matters. The captain watches the wind. Sailors adjust the canvas. The helmsman keeps the ship on course. The distance begins shrinking. You can see the other crew moving on their deck. They are trying to escape. The chase continues. Minutes become longer. The sun moves lower. The second vessel is still visible behind them. You wonder whether it will turn back. Then something changes. The leading ship raises a signal. Your crew watches carefully. Perhaps they are asking for help. Perhaps they are warning the other vessel. The captain waits. The second ship continues approaching. Now you understand the danger. The 2 vessels may soon work together. Your captain makes a decision. He orders the ship to break off the pursuit. The crew turns away. At first you are surprised. You thought pirates always chased their targets until they caught them. But now you understand. A captain who knows when to stop may be more successful than one who refuses to give up. The 2 ships continue toward the horizon. Your own vessel turns back toward its planned route. Nobody complains. The decision has been made. The crew returns to its work. You stand near the rail and watch the other ships disappear. The encounter leaves you with another lesson. Opportunity is not the same as safety. A valuable target may not be worth the risk. A ship may look weak from a distance and become dangerous as it approaches. And sometimes the wisest decision is simply to sail away. The sun disappears. Night returns. The crew settles into the evening watch. You look at the dark sea. The ship moves steadily forward. There is no prize aboard, no new cargo, no victory to celebrate. But the captain has protected the crew and the ship. Perhaps that matters more. You are beginning to understand the strange balance of pirate life. Courage is necessary, but so is restraint. A successful pirate cannot simply be fearless. He must also know when fear is telling him something important. The sea remains dark ahead. You cannot see what tomorrow will bring. And once again, the horizon holds the answer. The days after the failed chase are quiet. Nothing unusual appears on the horizon. The sea remains calm. The wind is steady. The crew returns to the familiar rhythm of watches, meals, repairs, and sleep. But you notice something has changed. The sailors seem more careful. The captain spends longer studying the charts. Every distant sail receives attention. Nobody wants to repeat the mistake of getting too close to a situation they cannot control. You begin to understand that experience at sea is often built from moments that never become stories. A ship that was not chased, a fight that was avoided, a storm that was recognized early, a strange sail that turned out to be harmless. These decisions rarely become legends, but they may be the reason a crew survives long enough to sail again. One afternoon, the captain calls several sailors together. You are asked to help as well. A chart is spread across a wooden table. The captain points toward a stretch of coastline. There is a narrow passage between two islands. According to the information gathered in port, merchant ships sometimes use it to shorten their journeys. But the passage has a reputation. Strong currents can develop there. Ships unfamiliar with the waters may be forced toward rocks. The captain studies the chart. He asks questions. Which direction does the current normally run? How deep is the water? Have naval patrols been seen nearby? The answers are uncertain. That uncertainty makes the decision difficult. The captain eventually chooses to approach the passage carefully. The ship changes course. Over the next 2 days, the coastline becomes visible. The islands appear ahead. At first they look small, then they grow larger. Dark cliffs rise from the sea. Green vegetation covers the higher ground. The water between them looks calm from a distance. But as the ship approaches, you notice the current. The surface of the water moves strangely. Some areas seem almost still. Others pull quickly in one direction. The captain orders the sails adjusted. The helmsman watches carefully. The ship enters the passage. For a while, everything goes smoothly. The cliffs rise on both sides. The wind becomes less predictable. Sound behaves strangely here. You can hear the sea striking the rocks. You can hear the sails. You can hear the voices of the crew. Then the ship suddenly turns slightly. The current has caught the hull. The helmsman corrects the course. Another adjustment follows. The crew works quickly. Nobody panics. But you can feel the tension. The rocks are not far away. The captain gives another order. The ship moves closer to one side of the passage. For several minutes you are convinced that the vessel may strike the rocks. Then the current weakens. The ship steadies. The danger passes. You breathe again. The captain does not say much, but the sailors exchange looks. Everyone understands how close it was. The passage opens ahead. The ship reaches calmer water. You look back at the cliffs. They seem peaceful now. It is difficult to imagine how dangerous they could have been. The experience teaches you something else. The sea does not need to be violent to be dangerous. Sometimes calm water can hide powerful currents. Sometimes the greatest threat is something you cannot see. The ship continues along the coast. The crew remains alert. Later that afternoon, another sail appears. This time the vessel is traveling toward the islands. The captain watches it carefully. It is a merchant ship. But the ship is still far away. The captain does not immediately change course. Instead, he waits. The merchant vessel enters the same passage. You watch. For a moment, it seems to follow the correct route. Then the current catches it. The merchant ship turns unexpectedly. The crew aboard begins adjusting the sails. Your captain watches closely. He could pursue it, but he does not. The merchant ship is struggling with the current, yet it is not helpless. It eventually corrects its course. The vessel passes safely through the passage. You realize that the captain made another decision not to attack. Perhaps the opportunity was not worth the risk. Perhaps he simply did not want to repeat the chase. Either way, the crew continues onward. That evening, the sailors discuss the passage. Some laugh about how close the ship came to the rocks. Others say very little. You sit quietly and listen. An older sailor explains that the sea has its own dangers. He says that many sailors are defeated not by enemies, but by mistakes. A wrong turn, a missed warning, a broken line, a badly judged current. The ocean does not care who you are. It does not care whether you are a merchant, sailor, pirate, or naval officer. Everyone aboard the ship is equally vulnerable. His words stay with you. Later, during your watch, you think about how much your understanding of piracy has changed. You once imagined pirates as people who lived outside ordinary rules. Now you see something different. They have rules of their own, rules about watches, rules about work, rules about dividing responsibilities, rules about following the captain during danger, and sometimes, rules about knowing when not to fight. The ship sails into darkness. Stars appear above the mast. The sea becomes almost black. You listen to the water. The ship moves steadily forward. The crew has survived another uncertain day. There has been no treasure, no dramatic battle, no great victory. But the ship remains afloat. The crew remains together. And tomorrow they will still have another chance. That may be the greatest reward of all. Because life at sea is not measured only by what you gain. Sometimes it is measured by what you manage not to lose. The next morning begins with an unusual silence. There is almost no wind. The sails hang loosely above the deck, and the ship moves only with the slow push of the remaining current. You wake to the sound of sailors speaking quietly. Nobody seems worried, but everyone is watching the sea. A calm like this can last for hours. Sometimes it can last for an entire day. For a sailing ship, however, calm weather is not always convenient. Without wind, the vessel becomes almost helpless. The crew can adjust the sails. They can wait. They can sometimes use small boats to move the ship. But there is no easy way to force a large sailing vessel across the ocean. The captain decides to wait. The ship drifts. You sit near the rail and watch the water. It is strangely peaceful. The surface looks almost like glass. There are no large waves, no distant storm, no ships. For several hours, almost nothing happens. The crew takes advantage of the quiet. Some sailors repair clothing, others work on ropes, one cleans the deck, another checks equipment below. Even when the sea is calm, there is always something to do. You begin helping with a section of rigging. An experienced sailor shows you how to inspect the knots. He explains that knots can loosen when they are repeatedly pulled by wind. A knot that looks secure may not remain secure after days at sea. You listen carefully. The lessons aboard the ship are rarely taught in a formal way. You learn by watching, you learn by making mistakes. You learn because someone older notices what you are doing and tells you how to do it better. By afternoon, the wind finally begins to return. At first, it is barely noticeable. Then the sails begin to move. The crew watches them. Slowly, the canvas fills. The ship starts moving again. Everyone seems relieved. The captain gives the order to set the course. The voyage continues. For the next few days, the sea remains relatively calm. The ship makes good progress. You begin thinking about the next port. But the captain has not announced where they will stop. That information is kept among the senior crew. You understand why. At sea, information can have value. A careless sailor can reveal a destination. A rumor can spread through a port. Another crew might learn where a pirate vessel intends to go. So the captain does not tell everyone everything. This is another part of life aboard the ship that you had not expected. There are secrets. Not every sailor knows the entire plan. You notice that questions are sometimes answered with a simple instruction. Do your job. Watch the sea. Wait. It is not always easy, but the system works. One evening, the captain calls the crew together. He announces that they will change course. A different port lies ahead. The reason is simple. The previous destination has become too risky. The captain does not want to take the chance. The news changes the atmosphere. Everyone understands what naval patrols mean. A pirate ship cannot simply assume that it will be ignored. The authorities have ships of their own. They can be faster, they can be better armed, and unlike merchant crews, naval sailors are trained specifically to pursue and fight. You begin thinking about the ships you have seen in the distance. Perhaps one of them was a patrol. Perhaps another is somewhere ahead. The captain orders the crew to remain alert. The next morning, a lookout spots a vessel. The ship is far away. The captain immediately asks for more information. The lookout studies the shape. The vessel appears to be sailing in the same direction. Nobody knows exactly what it is. The captain orders a slight change of course. The other vessel changes course too. The crew becomes tense. You watch the distant ship. For several minutes, neither side approaches. Then, the other vessel turns away. Your captain waits. The vessel continues disappearing toward the horizon. The tension slowly fades. It may have been a merchant ship. It may have been something else. Nobody knows for certain. That uncertainty is enough. The captain decides to avoid the area entirely. The ship changes course again. You realize that the crew's freedom depends partly on avoiding attention. The sea may look enormous, but important routes can become surprisingly crowded. Merchant ships travel them, naval ships patrol them, fishing vessels cross them, privateers search them, pirates watch them. Everyone is moving through the same water for different reasons. The challenge is knowing who is who. Several more days pass. The ship reaches a quieter stretch of sea. The crew relaxes slightly, but nobody becomes careless. You have learned that calm days can be followed by sudden problems. At night, you take your position during the watch. The sky is clear. Stars cover the darkness. The ship moves quietly beneath them. You think about the voyage so far. You have seen a merchant ship surrender. You have watched a chase abandoned. You have seen dangerous currents. You have worked through a storm. You have walked through a busy port. And now you are beginning to understand the invisible dangers of the sea. Not every threat announces itself. Sometimes danger is a distant sail. Sometimes it is a current. Sometimes it is a shortage of water. Sometimes it is simply a wrong decision. The pirate life is not only about courage, it is about judgment. A captain must decide when to pursue, when to wait, when to change course, when to take a risk, and when to turn away. You look toward the horizon. Nothing is visible. That does not mean nothing is there. Somewhere beyond the darkness, another ship may be moving. Perhaps it is carrying valuable cargo. Perhaps it is a naval patrol. Perhaps it is another pirate crew. For now, you cannot know. The ship continues forward. The sails move softly in the night wind. The watch continues. And once again, the ocean keeps its secrets. The morning begins with a change in the wind. It comes from the east, cool and steady, filling the sails before the crew has finished breakfast. The ship moves faster. After several slow days, everyone seems pleased to feel the hull cutting through the water again. You stand near the bow and watch the waves separate around the ship. The horizon is clear. There are no clouds large enough to suggest a storm. For once, the sea seems willing to cooperate, but the captain remains cautious. He has learned not to trust an easy morning. The crew continues its routine. Sails are checked, lines are inspected, the deck is cleaned, food is prepared, the watches continue. Nothing seems unusual. Then, near midday, the lookout calls from above. A sail. The crew immediately turns toward the horizon. You can barely see it, a small white shape against the blue. The captain asks for its direction. The lookout answers. The ship is moving toward you. Everyone waits. As the distance closes, more details become visible. It is a merchant vessel. This time, however, there is something different. The ship is traveling alone. No second vessel follows. No obvious naval escort is nearby. The captain studies it for several minutes. Then he gives a quiet order. The crew begins preparing. There is no excitement, only concentration. You have seen this before, but this time you notice the small details. Weapons are checked. Ropes are prepared. The sails are adjusted. The helmsman positions the ship carefully. Everyone knows what may happen next. The merchant vessel continues on its course. Perhaps its crew has not noticed you. Perhaps they have. From this distance, it is impossible to know. The captain waits until the two ships are closer. Then the pirate vessel changes direction. The merchant ship reacts. It turns slightly. The captain watches. Another adjustment. The merchant ship turns again. Now there is no doubt. They have seen you. The chase begins. The wind is strong. Both ships move quickly. The merchant vessel has a good lead. For several minutes, it seems likely to escape. Your crew works harder. The sails are adjusted. The ship gains speed. The distance begins to shrink. You can hear orders moving across the deck. Every sailor knows what he must do. You grip the rail. The merchant ship is getting closer. Its crew is clearly preparing for the possibility of boarding. You can see movement along its deck. The captain of your ship raises a signal. The message is simple. Stop. The merchant vessel does not. The chase continues. The sea becomes more crowded with movement. 2 ships, 2 crews, 1 decision approaching. Finally, the pirate ship comes alongside. The merchant vessel has nowhere to run. Lines are thrown. They land across the gap. The crew pulls them tight. For a moment, both vessels rise and fall together. Then, the boarding begins. You follow the others across. The merchant sailors stand together. Some carry weapons. Others have moved toward the rear of the vessel. The pirate crew spreads across the deck. The captain calls for the merchant master. A man steps forward. He looks exhausted. He understands the situation. There is a short exchange. Then, the merchant captain gives the order to lower his weapon. The confrontation is over. You breathe again. The search begins. Crates are opened. Barrels are checked. Bundles are moved. The pirates look for anything valuable. You help examine the cargo. This ship carries provisions, cloth, tools, food, and several small containers of valuable goods. There is no enormous treasure, but there is enough. The captain appears satisfied. The crew begins moving the selected cargo. As they work, you notice something else. The merchant sailors are watching. They seem frightened, but they are also curious. One of them asks a question. A pirate answers. For a moment, the two groups simply speak. There is no fighting, no shouting. Only two groups of sailors standing on the deck of a captured ship. You realize how strange the scene would look to someone watching from far away. The pirates are not monsters. The merchants are not helpless figures from a story. They are ordinary people caught in an extraordinary situation. Eventually, the cargo transfer is complete. The captain makes his decision. The merchant ship will be allowed to continue. The lines are released. The two vessels separate. The merchant crew begins resetting its sails. Your ship turns away. You watch the other vessel grow smaller. You feel a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. Another successful boarding, but the experience feels different from the first. You now understand how quickly an encounter can become dangerous, and how easily it can end. There was no battle. No one needed to die. The outcome was decided by the balance of speed, preparation, and fear. The captain returns to the chart. He studies the new cargo, then he gives another order. The ship changes course. The crew settles down. Some sailors inspect the captured goods, others return to their normal work. You stand at the stern. The merchant ship is almost invisible now. The sea has swallowed its shape. You think about the men aboard it. They will eventually reach another port. They will tell their story. Perhaps they will curse the pirates. Perhaps they will be grateful that the encounter ended peacefully. You will never know. The ship continues forward. By evening, the horizon is empty again. The crew eats quietly. The sea is calm. You begin to understand something that would have seemed strange to you before this voyage. A pirate's life is not made from one great adventure. It is made from hundreds of small decisions. Which ship to approach, which ship to avoid, when to chase, when to stop, what cargo to take, how much risk is acceptable, where to sail next, and when to disappear. The darkness settles around the ship. The stars return. You take your place for the evening watch. The deck is quiet. The sails move gently overhead. Somewhere beyond the horizon, other ships are traveling through the night. You cannot see them, but you know they are there. The sea connects all of them. Merchants, fishermen, sailors, naval crews, pirates, everyone following their own course. For tonight, your course is clear. The ship sails onward, and the next morning there will be another horizon to cross. The morning after the second boarding feels strangely ordinary. The sea is calm. The sky is pale. The ship moves steadily beneath a light wind. Below deck, the newly acquired cargo has been secured. Above, the crew returns to its routine. You might expect the sailors to celebrate. Instead, they work. A successful encounter does not end the voyage. It simply gives the crew another problem to solve. The captain must decide what to do with the cargo. The ship must remain supplied. The crew must remain healthy, and the vessel must continue moving. You begin to understand that a pirate captain is responsible for far more than choosing targets. He is responsible for keeping an entire floating community alive. That morning, the captain gathers several sailors near the mast. He examines the ship. The recent boarding caused some damage. Nothing serious, but several ropes need replacing. One section of rail has been weakened. A sail has a small tear. The repairs begin immediately. You help carry tools across the deck. The work is slow. There's nothing exciting about it, but everyone understands that these small repairs matter. A loose rail can become dangerous during a storm. A damaged sail can slow the ship during a chase. A weak rope can snap at exactly the wrong moment. At sea, small problems have a habit of becoming large ones. The repairs continue through the morning. By midday, the ship is in better condition. The captain seems satisfied. The crew eats. For a short while, everyone rests. Then the lookout calls out, "Another sail." You turn toward the horizon. The ship is distant, very distant, but the crew reacts immediately. The captain climbs toward the higher part of the deck. He studies the vessel. This time there is something unusual. The ship appears larger than the merchant vessels you have encountered. Its sails are broad. Its hull sits heavily in the water. Nobody speaks for a moment. The captain asks for more information. The lookout watches carefully. There may be weapons visible on deck. That changes everything. The captain orders the ship to maintain its distance. No chase, no sudden movement. Just observation. The other vessel continues along its course. As it approaches, more details become visible. You see several figures near the rail. You notice the shape of guns. The ship is armed. Perhaps it is a naval vessel. Perhaps a privateer. Perhaps an armed merchantman. Whatever it is, the captain does not want to find out at close range. The order is given. Change course. The crew moves quickly. The sails are adjusted. The ship begins turning away. For a few minutes, you worry that the other vessel will follow. It does not. The distance begins increasing. Only when the ship disappears into the haze does the crew relax. Nobody celebrates, but you can feel the relief. The encounter has reminded everyone of something important. Not every ship is a target. Some ships are simply too dangerous. You spend the afternoon thinking about that decision. Earlier in the voyage, you might have wondered why a pirate crew would ever turn away from a valuable ship. Now you understand. A captured cargo is worth something, but a ship and its crew are worth more. There is no profit in a prize that destroys the people who take it. The captain's caution is not weakness, it is survival. That evening, the sailors talk quietly about the armed vessel. Some believe it was a naval patrol. Others think it may have been a privateer. One sailor says he saw a gun deck. Another says he noticed a different flag. Nobody knows for certain. The uncertainty remains. You realize how much of life at sea depends on making decisions before you have complete information. A captain rarely has the luxury of knowing exactly what waits ahead. He must judge from distance, from appearance, from movement, from experience, and sometimes from instinct. The next day passes without incident. Then another. The crew continues sailing. The weather remains favorable. The ship moves toward a new area of ocean. The captain has decided to avoid the busy routes for a while. That means fewer merchant ships, but it also means fewer patrols. It is a trade-off. You begin noticing how often every decision seems to involve one. More opportunity means more danger. More safety means fewer chances. More cargo means more weight. More distance from ports means fewer supplies. Nothing is simple. Several days later, the ship reaches another quiet stretch of sea. The water is deep blue. The wind is gentle. There is no land in sight. The crew settles into another long period of waiting. You stand at the bow. The sea stretches ahead. For a moment, you feel almost disappointed. You had imagined pirate life as constant action. Instead, most of it is waiting. Waiting for wind, waiting for a ship, waiting for weather, waiting for the right moment. But now the waiting feels different. You have learned how much can happen inside a quiet day. A sail can appear, a storm can arrive, a rope can break, a decision can change the entire course of the voyage. The sea may look empty, but it is never truly empty. There is always something moving somewhere beyond the horizon. That night, the stars are unusually bright. You sit on the deck after your watch. The crew around you is quiet. Some sailors sleep. Others speak softly. You look at the ship, the repaired ropes, the patched sail, the cargo below, the worn deck. Everything shows evidence of the journey. The vessel is no longer simply a ship to you. It is a living place. It carries everyone's work, mistakes, fears, hopes, and memories. And tomorrow it will carry you farther. You look toward the horizon. You cannot see what comes next. Perhaps another merchant ship. Perhaps another storm. Or perhaps nothing at all. For now, the ship continues through the darkness. The sails move gently. The water passes beneath the hull, and somewhere ahead, beyond the reach of your eyes, another day is waiting. The final morning at sea arrives quietly. There is no storm, no distant sail, no sudden alarm from the lookout. Only the steady movement of the ship beneath your feet. The horizon is pale with the first light of dawn. You stand near the bow and watch the darkness slowly disappear. After everything that has happened, the quiet feels almost strange. You think about the person who first stepped aboard this ship. That person feels distant now. You remember how unfamiliar the deck seemed, how difficult it was to understand the ropes, how strange the watches felt, how enormous the ocean appeared. Now the deck feels familiar. You know the sounds of the ship, you know the smell of wet timber, you know the movement of the sails, you know when the crew is relaxed and when something has caught their attention. You have learned how to work, how to wait, how to watch, and perhaps most importantly, how to survive. The crew begins another ordinary morning. Food is prepared, the deck is checked, the sails are inspected, the captain studies the chart. Nothing about the scene suggests that this journey has been extraordinary. But you know better. You have seen the sea change from calm to violent. You have watched storms pass over the ship. You have felt the tension of a chase. You have stepped onto another vessel during a boarding. You have watched valuable cargo move from one ship to another. You have seen the crew turn away from danger, and you have learned that most decisions are not as simple as they appear from a distance. Piracy is often remembered through dramatic stories, battles, treasure, captains with famous names, ships disappearing over the horizon. But the life you have experienced has been quieter. Most days were filled with work. Most hours were spent waiting. Most dangers were uncertain, and most victories were simply moments when everyone returned safely to the deck. The captain calls the crew together. He explains that the next port is not far away. The ship will soon leave these waters. The journey has almost reached its end. You look around at the sailors. Some have become familiar faces. You have eaten beside them, worked beside them, stood watches beside them, shared silence with them during long nights. You realize that a ship creates strange relationships. People who might never have met on land become dependent upon one another at sea. A sailor may annoy you. Another may frighten you. Someone else may become a friend. But when the wind rises, everyone has the same problem. When the ship begins to leak, everyone needs the same solution. When danger appears, everyone depends on everyone else. The sea creates its own kind of community. The ship continues forward. At first, it is only a faint line. Then the coastline becomes clearer. You recognize the familiar signs of a port: smoke, buildings, small boats, other ships. The crew becomes more active. Lines are prepared, sails are adjusted. The ship slows. You watch the harbor grow larger. Soon the vessel enters calmer water. The sounds of land return. Voices, carts, animals, tools striking wood, people calling across the waterfront. After so much time at sea, the noise feels overwhelming. The ship reaches the dock. The ropes are secured. The movement beneath your feet stops. Once again, the ground feels strangely unstable. You step onto the dock. For a moment, you simply stand there. You have spent so long moving that standing still feels unfamiliar. The crew begins unloading supplies. The captain speaks with people from the harbor. The voyage is ending. You know that the ship will eventually leave again. Pirate life does not stop because one journey ends. Another voyage will come, another route, another port, another horizon, but this journey has taught you what the stories never could. The pirate life was not simply freedom. It was not endless adventure. It was not treasure every morning. It was hard work, cold nights, wet clothing, poor sleep, uncertain food, long watches, constant repairs, fear, patience, and decisions that could not be undone. The sea offered opportunities, but it also demanded payment. Every mile had a cost. Every storm tested the ship. Every chase tested the crew. Every boarding created consequences, and every successful return depended on hundreds of small decisions. You look back at the vessel. The ship is worn. The sails have been repaired. The deck carries marks from the voyage. The ropes are weathered. Nothing about it looks glamorous, yet you understand why sailors could become attached to such a vessel. It carried them through everything. It became their shelter, their workplace, their home, their escape from the ordinary world. and their greatest danger. You think about the merchant sailors you encountered. You will probably never see them again. You think about the armed ship you avoided. Somewhere, it continues its own journey. You think about the storms, the ports, the empty horizons, the nights beneath the stars. All of them have become part of the voyage. The captain gives another order. The crew begins preparing for the next stage. You realize that there is no perfect ending at sea. There is only another departure, another morning, another watch, another horizon. You stand for a final moment beside the water. The harbor stretches around you. The sea beyond it looks peaceful, but you know what lies beneath that peaceful surface. Currents, storms, ships, danger, opportunity, uncertainty. The same ocean that carried you away will carry you again. You take one last look toward the open water. Then you turn back toward the ship. But the sea is not finished with you. Perhaps tomorrow you will sail again. Perhaps another crew will take this vessel farther than you ever imagined. Perhaps another sailor will stand where you are standing now, looking at the horizon and wondering what waits beyond it. That is the strange truth about the Golden Age of Piracy. The stories often end when the ship disappears over the horizon, but for the people aboard it, the story never really ended. There was always another day, another repair, another meal, another watch, another decision, another uncertain meeting with the sea. And now, as the morning light spreads across the harbor, you finally understand what it meant to wake up as a pirate. Not to live inside a legend, but to live inside a routine. To work, to wait, to risk, to choose, and above all, to keep sailing. The sea remains beyond the harbor, quiet now, endless, waiting, and somewhere beyond that horizon, another ship is already moving into the morning.